This is VSiN, the sports betting network. This is the VSiN Morning Line on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Good morning, happy Thursday, and welcome into the VSiN Morning Line. We got more football to watch tonight between the Jets and the Patriots. We will break down that TNF game and much, much more coming up on the show. I'm Grace Remington with Michael Lombardi and Harrison Sanford. Thank you so much for waking up with us. Before we get into tonight's game, let's take a look at what we got coming up for you. We have a trio of guests joining us on the guest line today. Brian Baldinger, Baldy, joining us later on in this hour at 7:45 Eastern with his Week 3 preview. At 8:45 Eastern, Brian Costello, beat writer for the New York Jets, will do a deep dive into the team and give us his insights before tonight's game. And at 9:30 Eastern, Michael Calabrese with his best bets for this weekend of college football. And this weekend will be a doozy. Coming up in this hour, though, we're going to preview this Patriots-Jets game. We're going to look at some of Week 3's biggest spreads. Which underdogs have a chance of pulling the upset this week? We're also going to take a look at those Week 4 college football games. And, of course, Baldy joining the show at the end of the hour. So, Michael, Harrison, let's get into this. Jets-Patriots. Jets haven't been a favorite against the Patriots in like 25 years. So they're in a unique spot right here. This line actually got up to 7.5. It's been bet down to 6 on game day. The look-ahead total was 42. It reopened at 39.5. It now sits at 38.5. So a lower scoring affair anticipated tonight. Michael, what are the keys to this game that you're looking at?
Well, I mean, first of all, we have to start with the offensive line of the New England Patriots. They're going to have to play 2 rookies. Caden Wallace will have to play left tackle. Vernon Lowe is hurt. He missed the part of the second part of the Seattle game, so that's a concern. And then the style of play. I think one of the biggest untold stories of the 2024 season so far is the Jets offense. I know they have Aaron Rodgers. I know they have Breece Hall. I know they're going to be great. But just let me say this very clearly. They are only 15 yards different between the Jets offense from 2023 to the Jets offense in 2024. 15 yards. It's really remarkable. And they average exactly the same at 5.1 yards per play. So the reason this total's down is because New England loves to control the football, run the football. They've averaged 33 minutes with the football in 2 games. And the Jets offense, Harrison, has looked nothing like everybody expected it to look like with Aaron Rodgers under center.
Yeah, I'm going to give the Jets a little bit of a break here, Michael, though, because you have to look at the quality of opponent that they've had. The 49ers, who were able to run the ball and really dominate time of possession. And then you look at the Tennessee Titans, who so far have looked like a really solid defense. But I think that their point is correct. This game is about this Jets offense. Is this Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett offense really going to play to the strength of this team in its entirety? We have a situation here where you look at another team that can run the ball, that can keep away the offense or the opportunities for the New York Jets with Ramondre Stevenson, potentially with Antonio Gibson in the running game. Can the Jets put them out of their game script? Can they throw the ball to players outside of Garrett Wilson? Or is Breece Hall going to get another 8 targets again? Do they have any diversity to this offense to really put Jacoby Brissett in a situation where he has to pass the ball? Because if they don't have to pass the ball, this game is going to be a lot closer than maybe Jets fans would want, Michael.
No question it's going to be closer, but they haven't proven they can stop the run in 2 games. Last year, in 9 games, they gave up 130 yards rushing, and so far in 2 games, they've given up over 130 yards rushing. I would not consider Tennessee being a great run offense, but they have been effective. I mean, this Jet defense has allowed 4.7 yards per rush, and for New England to stay in the game, for New England to be effective, they've got to run the football. New England threw for less than 100 yards against Seattle's secondary, which is very good, but they're going to struggle to throw the ball against the Jets secondary. New England doesn't want to get in the track meet. New England wants to play very steady. They want to be able to go in a halftime with a lead or very close to it, and then get the game to the fourth quarter, win this game ugly. And I think ultimately, if Gonzalez can take Garrett Wilson out of the game, then the Jets are going to have to look for alternatives, Harrison, somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we'll get into later on in the show. But I looked at it last week. They were able to move Garrett Wilson around in the formations. Sometimes they had him on the outside. Sometimes they had him in the slot. But at the end of the day, are we going to get an offense here from the New York Jets that's going to show some diversity? Will we have Mike Williams actually make an appearance? What about Alan Lazard? Can those guys actually play at a high level? Or Aaron Rodgers, can he lift them to a high level so that the New England Patriots feel like they can't throw the ball. I mean, that they can't run the ball, that they have to throw the ball. You talk about it a lot, Michael. It's putting using that West Coast offense game script in a situation here where you're going to force Jacoby Brissett to do something that maybe he's not qualified to do, which is pass it over 30 times. That's the entirety of the game. And so it makes me just think, is Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett actually worth the investment? Can they actually prove that they can play to this team's strengths on the defensive end of the ball, which is the secondary?
Well, I think to me, New England has been good in 2 games. I know they've played Cincinnati and Seattle, but Geno Smith is setting records in Seattle, and they've held them to under 10 yards per reception in terms of catches, not average per attempt. New England's secondary is very good, and their front's very good. And if they do this, if the Jets get into a passing game, I think everything you said, Harrison, makes complete sense, and it all comes back to who has the lead. Who's able to play from in front? That's the key to everything, because when you don't play from in front, then you become a little bit desperate. And both these teams have not proven that they can stop teams on third down. I mean, the Jets have allowed 11 first downs out of 25 so far this season. That's 44%, Grace. So if New England can get in those third twos, third and threes, and Brissett can run those short passes and keep the ball quickly out of his hand, get the ball out of his hand quickly, it certainly helps the Patriots. Look, it's a short week for New England. They've got injuries in the offensive line. What I always believe is bad lines don't travel. We're going to find out how bad this line is, Grace.
Yeah, I mean, I think New England is traveling cross-country from Seattle. Now they got 2 road games in a row, and Jets have home field advantage. That HFA will be exaggerated on a short week of travel. But can we talk about the Patriots' offensive side of the ball? Because I could see them becoming one-dimensional very quickly here. Sure, Ramondre Stevenson has been leading the ground game, and that's looked great. But looking at the wide receivers getting into the action last week, so taking out the running backs, the tight ends out of the passing game, New England wide receivers had 3 catches for 19 yards last week. And so when the Jets shut down their run game, what else is left, Michael?
Well, I mean, look, that New England has a script, Grace. They're going to follow the script. It's either we're going to run the ball and get first downs. We have to control the clock. We've held the ball for 33 minutes in 2 games. Now, granted, I don't think Seattle's defense is elite, but Seattle's defense can cover. I think what Seattle was able to do is play really good pass defense. They couldn't keep them from running the ball. This team's averaged 4.7 yards rushing. I think that's the key. They have one way to play. New England has one way to play. And if the game gets away from them, if they turn it over, if they get behind by 10, then all of a sudden that 10-point lead will go to 17. They will not catch up because they can't pass protect well enough with a 2 rookies playing in the offensive line. And then they're going to struggle to throw the football against Sauce Gardner. And if DJ Reed is healthy today, I think that's going to be the key. But this is not a passing team at all. This is a run first team. And even if they're down 7-0 in the first quarter, they're going to keep running it. They have to run it. They have to follow the script. This is what happens with bad teams. They can only play one way, Harrison.
Yeah, and we could bemoan their injuries on the offensive line, and you guys are right. It's definitely a cause for concern. But on the other side of the ball, the Jets, they have injuries in their defensive lineup as well, and they also are playing their 3rd game in 11 days. You go from Monday Night Football to Sunday night, and now they're playing on a Thursday. So this isn't necessarily going to be an easy chore for them either, because they're operating on a lack of rest in comparison to most teams.
Wait, Michael, here's a question I have for you. Which side has the coaching edge?
Well, that's it. That was a setup question, Grace. Come on, you know that. Bobby Saleh never goes into a game. Bobby Saleh never has an advantage at a 34% win percentage. Come on now. I mean, that's
How
a
could
given.
He not have the advantage against a first-year head coach, though? a first-year head coach.
You think Bobby Saleh's more than a first-year head coach? I mean, what has he proven to anybody that he knows what he's doing? I mean, nobody said a word. Their offense averages 5.1 yards per play. Last year they averaged 5.1. The biggest untold secret about the 24 season is Nathaniel Hackett's offense still isn't any good. Like, we blamed him last year because he didn't have Aaron Rodgers. They're not any good this year. They've run the same. Look, they're running Bill Walsh's smash 7 curl plays that they ran in 1985. It's a prehistoric offense. I know they've got Aaron Rodgers, but Tennessee rolled the ball out to them and gave them the game. When they play against good defenses, this offense is prehistoric, Harrison. I don't care what anybody says. And Bobby Saleh ain't coaching a team to a win. I can tell you that.
But to be fair, I think, again, we have to classify the quality.
I'm just grading what I see, Harrison. I'm fair.
Oh, for sure.
I'm not having no grudge. I'm fair. Huh?
I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying you aren't, but I think we have to qualify the quality of opponent that they've had so far in the 49ers, in the Titans, and then you have to also qualify the fact that, as we've been bemoaning on this show so far, offenses aren't good all around the NFL. It's not like they're an anomaly. Like, they're bad all around.
The Saints' offense is good. The Saints' offense is pretty good. Well, you got Aaron Rodgers and you got Garrett Wilson. You got Aaron Rodgers, you got Garrett Wilson, you got all these great players. You got this offensive line. Joe Douglas is going to be GM of the year. I mean, you better move the football. You got a 40. If you don't get good quick with them, Grace, I don't know. But to answer your question, Grace, I'm never going with Bobby Saleh. I'll take the Ocean City High School Kevin Smith. I'll take him over Bobby Saleh.
Okay, it was more a question about Gerard Mayo, but I'll get to that later on in the show. I got what I wanted, to be honest. Thanks, Michael. All right, if the Jets close as a 7-point favorite, by the way, it would be their first time doing so since 1999. They're not the only touchdown favorite this week, though. Underdogs dominated through the first 2 weeks. We're going to take a look at more of those big spreads and see if that trend continues coming up next.
Time. There's nothing more valuable. It's what drives everyone to make the most of every moment. We celebrate living large in the now. In a city where time disappears, we create experiences that electrify the soul and memories that will last forever. We go big, we go all night, and here, everyone is invited. So get loose and get loud.
This is Circa. You'll have the time of your life.
Coming up Wednesday on Follow the Money, big show. We talked to former MVP Rich Gannon, also the VP of Circa Mike Palm, and Sal Pal with picks and predictions. Follow the Money weekdays 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Want to see who at VSiN is on a hot streak? Go to VSiN.com/picks to see all the selections and weekly leaderboard of VSiN hosts, writers, and guests. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber and get every pick sent to your inbox daily. Just head to VSiN.com/pro.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's late night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back into the VSiN Morning Line. Thank you for getting your day started with us. I'm Grace Remington with Michael Lombardi and Harrison Sanford. 70% of the Circa Survivor field is already eliminated, and that's because it's been a season for the underdogs. Through the first 2 weeks of this NFL season, underdogs of 5.5 points or more are 9-1 against the spread with 5 straight-up wins. Will this trend continue in week 3? There are quite a few games out here with a spread of 6.5, 7. There's a 5.5 out there with the Panthers and Raiders. We're going to get into all of these. But, Michael, just general overview here. Do you think this underdog trend continues in week 3?
Well, what's fascinating about this underdog trend, and we can talk to Mike Palm later, is, as he would know it better than anyone, is the fact that this is actually in Circa Contest Survivor. This is lower the amount of people that have been eliminated than the last 2 years. The last 2 years, it's been 74 to 75%. We're at 72. I know it's a very small number, but to me, that's significant. Look, I think one of the things that have been a real problem in the National Football League is the red zone offenses have been a disaster. Teams have not been able to score. There's been more 50-yard field goals than ever before in the league. That's been a real issue. Teams, because of training camp, you can't run the football and become physical and score in the red zone. So that's an issue. And then you look at it. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs have converted 5 third downs in 2 games. 5 third downs in 2 games. They have Patrick Mahomes. Now, Bryce Young just got benched, Harrison. He's only converted 2 third downs in 2 games. So the difference is +3 for Kansas City. Mahomes, we're talking about the greatest quarterback in the history of the sport. Meanwhile, Bryce Young gets benched. But to me, I think the passing games, as you mentioned earlier in the first block, have really taken a hard hit.
Yeah, they have, and it's really been disappointing for those in Survivor Leagues because you've relied on teams like the Cincinnati Bengals in week 1 who lost to the New England Patriots. And a lot of people relied on Lamar Jackson in that week 2 opportunity against the Las Vegas Raiders, but that didn't happen as well. I honestly, Grace, I just think it's going to be a difficult go-round for anybody in Survivor League, judging by this rate. Because the offenses just aren't there as of yet. So even if you take the big favorite at home, it's just one of those things. You just got to kind of live with the results. It's going to be one of those things until the offenses pick up. I don't think there's no safe choice. There's actually no safe choice because even in the league that I'm in, when you don't make a pick, which one of my friends did it, they automatically pick you for the highest favorite team. And the team with the highest favorite point total or laying the most amount of points. Let's just say that. Make it easy. And it happened both weeks. The Bengals won it. The Bengals lost at home. The Ravens lost at home. Those were the highest point spreads for a home favorite in those individual weeks. So I'm just like everybody else. I don't know what's going on. and until we get some data that really explains it all, it's a dice roll, which is not comfortable when you're putting money down. That's for sure.
Well, remember Carl Johnson came on here, I think it was Monday, from the Beau Rivage, and he was talking about his power ratings and how the gap, the talent, or his just ratings gap between each team is getting smaller and smaller week over week. I try to think about like tiers, I guess. In the bottom tier, you would probably just have the Panthers, Giants, Commanders, I guess, because of their defense. Top tier, I don't even know anymore because the 49ers have so many injuries. The Chiefs are dealing with issues. But so you pretty much just have everyone separated. I don't remember how much he said, but I mean, it's pretty small. So that makes sense why you'd have so many upsets because people are just having to readjust their ratings. Got to get these right. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
I think it goes back to the fact that, training camps are really soft. I mean, they're the Cincinnati Bengals, who we think are a good team. They let a game slip away in Kansas City. Should have won it. They're 0-2. Baltimore typically starts fast. They're 0-2. We're not used to seeing that. Baltimore has been very good at stopping the run. They only give up less than 2.9 yards per carry in 2 games against 2 offenses, but yet they haven't been able to slow anybody down in the passing game, and they can't play well in the fourth quarter. They're giving up 20 points in the fourth quarter. So there's a lot of teams that are issues. Zach Orr's a first-time coordinator in Baltimore. That's been a problem. I think, to me, we'll start to see some leveling out there. I think there will be a huge separation because there are some teams. Detroit, for example, is really a good team. Now, if you look at that box score, I don't know what Ben Johnson was thinking to allow Jared Goff to throw the ball 55 times. That's not Jared Goff's game. Jared Goff's game is throw it 30, run the ball. But what happened in Detroit is they got carried away. Well, Tampa has nobody in their secondary, so they played outside their comfort zone. The September is about knowing what your team's good at doing and what your team can't do. And I think, Harrison, that's the key. And you need good coaching. You need good leadership to figure that out. I think Detroit will, because I think Dan Campbell understands it better than anybody.
Yeah, I'll keep it to Detroit. I'll just keep it with offenses in general. And to your point, it might take some time for these offenses to really start clicking. And if I want to switch it to fantasy football here, I think this is exactly the moment in time that you take advantage of some really poor performances across the NFL. If you're somebody who has a Mike Evans, keep it with the Lions. If you're somebody who has Sam Laporta, there's a number of players out. If you're somebody who has Jamar Chase, or somebody you want to get Jamar Chase, those players might be out there for the taking, because you might have some people in your leagues who are 0-2, worried about the offense. Maybe they're predicting a decline for these players. And so it's an opportunity to take advantage if these offenses finally come around. I'm hoping that they will, but that's the thing that you have to kind of predict here in the fantasy football market, or maybe even in the prop market as well. But it is definitely frustrating to kind of see how it's been going so far.
Michael, back to your point about training camp and teams coming into the season soft. It makes no sense to me that some of these teams would treat the start of the regular season as their preseason, because we know 0-2 teams have an 11% chance of making it to the playoff. You wouldn't want to waste any opportunity, but yeah, very well could be a reason why we've seen so many upsets.
Well, I think their methodology is they don't want to get anybody hurt in camp. And so they're the Rams. They don't play anybody. I mean, Bryce Young didn't play. He threw 8 passes in the third preseason game. He played 1 series, and he was declared ready to go. We've seen enough. I mean, to me, the problem, a bigger issue is not only not playing the players and getting the team ready, it's not really understanding what your team's good at doing and what your team can't do. I mean, look, there's a new coordinator in New Orleans in Clint Kubiak, and he goes down in there. He installs his system. He's under center, which is really important. And they run play action. Shaheed, the young kid that they get from Weber State, who was on their practice squad, nobody can cover them. So they know who their team is. They throw it down the field. They're very good defensively with Dennis Allen, when they were good last year. You know, we all talked about the carryover from one year to the next. I mean, New Orleans wins 4 of the last 5 games last year. Now they're on a heater. They've won 6 of their last 7 games. Carr's played really well. Last year, in the last 5 games, he threw 14 touchdown passes, only had 2 interceptions with Pete Campbell as the offensive coordinator. Now, that changed. Pete Carmichael, that changed. And now Kubiak comes in, and he's continued to go forward because their offensive line's better. So a lot of this is recognizing what you're good at doing and what you're not good at doing. And I think when you don't play players in the preseason, you don't find that out, Grace. So that's the real issue.
Yeah, self-scouting, definitely important before the games start to count. But let's take a look at some of these big spreads before we run out of time here. Bucs Broncos, I think, is interesting. Bucs opened on the look-ahead line as a 3.5-point favorite. It's now 6.5. It did get up to 7 at one point. But Michael, when I look at the Bucs, this is a really overrated team, because they kind of had a phony win, like a good team. Don't get me wrong, good team, but maybe just a little overrated in the market, because that win against the Lions was a little phony, right? They were outgained by 200 yards in that one, but it looks good because it's a big road win in a playoff rematch against what we think is a Super Bowl contender. So how do you see this game?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, first of all, Vita Vea's not going to play, which is huge for Tampa. Anytime Vita Vea's not in there, all of a sudden that becomes a real issue. And one of the reasons I think the line has gone up is because of the Broncos' inability. They've not been able to stay on the field. They've only converted 7 third downs all season. And the killer for Denver has been their inability to run the football. They've averaged 3.7 yards per attempt, and Bo Nix is their leading rusher. That's a huge issue. And you can run the ball even when Vita Vea was playing. That box score last week against the Lions, the only reason they survived was the Lions were 1 for 7 in the red zone and really were disappointing. I mean, that game should have covered. It just didn't, and I think that's the issue. Look, to me, 6.5 seems like too much here. I think it's too much of a number. I know Baker Mayfield's playing better, but this Bronco defense has played pretty well as well. So I think this is a field goal type game. I'm not saying the Broncos can win it, but they're going to need some production out of Bo Nix, particularly in the red zone. He's thrown 4 interceptions, no touchdowns, Grace. So they're going to have to fix that.
I know, and even though the Bucs defense is dealing with all these injuries, they do have good depth, and you have to think Todd Bowles will be able to dial up something to get that rookie quarterback feeling uncomfortable.
No question.
All right, coming up next, we're going to the college football side. Plenty of ranked-on-ranked matchups this week, some of them with playoff implications. OK State, it's pretty much win or go home for them. We're going to break down some of these games on the other side. You're watching the VSiN Morning Line.
VSiN's got you covered for the start of the season with our football special. For $175, you'll get access to everything VSiN has to offer. With VSiN Pro, you'll receive daily picks straight to your inbox, detailed analysis on every game, and exclusive data like our betting splits to help you become a sharper bettor. Get all of this for just $175 through the Super Bowl. Or try a monthly subscription and get your first 30 days for only $9.99. Don't miss out on this offer. Sign up now at VSiN.com/subscribe.
The only thing better than football is the excitement of all the contests. Catch the Circa Friday Football Invitational at 9 p.m. Eastern with picks from some of the sharpest bettors around the country. Then on Saturdays at 9, watch the Football Contest Show, where our expert hosts and guests go through the consensus choices for some of the biggest betting contests in the world. The fun doesn't stop there. Visit VSiN.com for the full lineup and join us on the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to the VSiN Morning Line. Harrison Sanford, Michael Lombardi, and Grace Remington joining you as we begin the football week. Thursday night football on the way and a bunch of college football as well. But I must say, guys, I take advantage of my Tuesdays and Wednesdays to catch up on things that are not related to actually watching games. And so last night, Michael, I watched the first 2 episodes of American Crime Story, the story of Aaron Hernandez. And I must say, I'm almost happy that they didn't put out all the episodes because I might have binged it all night and been real groggy for this show this morning.
Well, I mean, that really speaks to, that show speaks to how difficult it is in college scouting to find out information about players and how schools, Urban Meyer, I don't know if he knew a lot about the background of Aaron Hernandez. Certainly that documentary gives you a lot of background, but it was very challenging to find out. I don't think the Patriots had any idea. I knew the Patriots, he tested positive for marijuana at the combine, which back in that day was a red flag. It wasn't legal in our country at that point. So that was a red flag. But to me, what it tells you is you didn't realize the depth of what was going on in his hometown and how he was behaving. And that's why it's so challenging to determine the character of some of these young players. We just don't know. And I think that's where you have to do a really good job in scouting, because you end up with something that was as disastrous as the Hernandez experiments was, especially considering that they then rewarded him with a new contract. You know, that was one of those. They had him in their building and they still didn't know. He did a really good job, Harrison, of hiding what his real intentions were.
Yeah, no, as I was watching it last night, I started to realize all the things that were really troubling him in his childhood. You made a great point there. It is difficult to actually do all the background checks that are needed. Grace, I know you're more of a Disney and Hallmark family person. Are you going to give this, it's a sports-related documentary, you're going to give it a spin?
I know. I was just about to say we were spending our night in 2 completely different ways, because I was thinking about watching The Golden Bachelorette last night, the season debut.
I did see commercials for that.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really good. I'm really excited. The Golden Bachelor was a hit. Yeah, it's full of feel-good stories. But I might have to like text you offline about this one to see just how much they show. Is it gory? Like, do they show stuff in these reenactments? I can't do that.
I can understand it. It gets pretty dark. I'll give you a report. I'll give you a report after the show.
Sorry.
But yeah,
you
I'll
can
just let
get
you
into
give some
me the recap every time you watch those.
Yeah,
it'll be my spark notes.
We will let you get into some college football betting as we spoke about Aaron Hernandez, who was a star at the University of Florida. Before we do that, let me introduce to you guys Express Bet. Take your betting to the next level by playing the ponies on First Bet. From Santa Anita to Gulfstream Park to the Kentucky Derby and Preakness, First Bet has you covered. Sign up at firstbet.com. That's number 1, firstbet.com. Use promo VSiN200 to claim a 20% rebate for your first 60 days, up to $200. Head to firstbet.com today. And I could imagine that there's going to be a lot of bets in the college football slate on a game that's happening in the Big 12, where we've seen some big line movement, Grace, between Oklahoma State and Utah, the matchup of the 2 oldest quarterbacks in college football. And at first, Utah was a favorite. But as we look now, the Cowboys, the home team, are now laying 2.5 points. What is your insight on this game, and what do you think caused this line movement?
Well, it's definitely Cam Rising news. And I was actually looking at this last night thinking, if the books or someone knew about his injury status, like that is going to affect a swing in the line here. And the fact that Utah was, I think, a 2.5 point favorite last night told me that Cam Rising was playing, because in this day and age, I mean, I wouldn't put it past anyone to like go slip a little something under the door to get some injury news from one of the trainers or, quality control coaches. The fact that we're waking up this morning and OK State is now the favorite tells me that Cam Rising his injury status is a little bit more up in the air. We were told it was a laceration in his hand, but you don't know if it's the top of the hand or the bottom of the hand, because that affects the way you grip the ball. And just from a power ratings perspective, I think Utah is probably 2 points better than OK State on a neutral site. So now OK State is 2.5-point favorite at home. I mean, that's a pretty noticeable swing. The only reason if this game had been last week, Kyle Whittingham would have played Cam Rising. So yeah, I think this is all about the quarterback play here. So that very interesting news to wake up to. And of course, Whittingham is very tight-lipped about injuries. So it'll be interesting to see at his press conference today what the local reporters can get out of him.
Yeah, that's some of the frustrating things as it pertains to betting in college football, betting in the NHL. You don't get the pristine injury reports like you get in the NFL, where you really get some more detail about the specific injury, and sometimes you get a good timetable, even though the Jordan Love timetable seems to be kind of off. We'll get to that later in the show. But yeah, if there's issues with Cam Rising, I could understand that line movement. But again, there is a level of uncertainty that he could potentially get back out there or participate in some capacity, or whoever might be backing him up might be able to hold down the fort. And so it's so tricky, Grace. It's a stay away for me, that is for sure. But we'll keep with the theme of quarterbacks and switch it over to Michigan, who is going to be
Harrison,
at home
starting. I'll just
Go ahead.
add really quickly. My play for this game, assuming Cam Rising was playing, would have been the under 54 that actually was bet down to 52.5 last night. So I just wanted to check it right now. The total still has not moved. So I think the under 52 is still a good play because the OK State offense hasn't been great this year either with Ollie Gordon. So now we have questions on both sides of the ball. I think if you want to get in this game, take the full game under.
Yeah, I could understand that, even though I will say historically it would be kind of nerve-wracking to pick an under in a Big 12 game. But Utah's new to the Big 12. They aren't a part of the old regime. So maybe there is some modicum of defense at some point there. Let's keep with the theme of quarterbacks, though, and switch it over to Michigan hosting number 11 USC. We did hear earlier this week that Alex Orji is going to be in at quarterback. This is after the confusion. Is it him? Is it Davis Warren? Is it him? We're finally having some clarity, at least for week number 4. They are 5.5-point underdogs at home against the Trojans. How are you looking at this one?
So I think USC is a teeny bit overrated because they blew out Utah State. And while it's impressive to hold any team to 0 points, it's still Utah State. And then I still think LSU kind of gave them that game in the opening week of the season. There were penalties. So USC a little overrated here. I think Michigan could be a little underrated because Texas, as we've learned, is the best team in the country. And it's not even close. So this might be the lowest the market has been on Michigan in probably the last 4 years. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this line get a little smaller by kickoff time when, the limits get higher and more professional bettors can come in on the other side. And yesterday it did get up to 6, but now we wake up today and look, now it's back to 5. My bet for this game is actually the USC side, but I'm going to take their team total over 24.5. This is a must-win game for Lincoln Riley because you look at the rest of their schedule. They have Penn State, Nebraska, Notre Dame. They need to blow out Michigan because if they lose one of those games down the line, that obviously hurts their playoff chances. But when the committee goes and sees that they blew out the reigning national champ, that's going to give them that much more credit. The Trojans, if you look at their pace of play, they actually have been playing a little bit slower, but I think that's because they were up so big on the previous opponents that they were just kind of trying to let the clock run out. But yeah, for me, it's all about the Lincoln Riley offense here. I think Miller Moss is a much better fit. Like Caleb Williams obviously is awesome, but he had to play hero ball. Miller Moss can fit better into the Lincoln Riley system. So I don't like the spread right now, but I'll take the team total over 24.5.
Yeah, I could back you on that team total too. And I think if there's going to be questions about the offense here for Michigan using Alex Orji at quarterback race, then even if the offense isn't great for USC, which I still expect it to be because it's Lincoln Riley, I guess we all have to consider the type of field position that they will get if the Michigan Wolverines cannot sustain drives. They can't convert on third downs, and that would just allow for a shorter field. Before we move on to our next segment, real quick, any upset alerts for week number 4?
Ooh, okay. So honestly, these are just going based on vibes. Mississippi State, Mississippi State over Florida, I think is possible. And I know I flamed the Cowbells yesterday for their slow start to the season, but what is Florida playing for at this point? I mean, the players are already quitting on their coach. At least on the Mississippi State side, it's Jeff Lebby's first year, and his offense does have explosive capability. And then I'm thinking Vandy, not for the outright upset, but the plus 21.5. They had a really unlucky loss last week. Their quarterback, Pavia, is 7-1 against the spread as an underdog in the last 2 seasons right now. So I think there's some fight in this Vandy team.
Definitely worth a sprinkle. We'll be back with more VSiN Morning Line.
In the heart of downtown Las Vegas, a sports oasis awaits. Stadium Swim, the ultimate outdoor amphitheater, built for the ultimate sports fan, with a colossal screen that brings the game closer than ever. Reserve a daybed, private cabana, or lounge in the center of it all. 6 pools to dive into as the game heats up. And the best part, there's never an off-season. Open 365 days a year. Stadium Swim, it's always spectator season.
Looking for the ultimate sports betting podcasts? VSiN has got you covered. With a wide range of podcasts covering every major sport, we're here to help you make smarter bets every season. The Baseball Betting Show with Greg Peterson gives you daily insights into finding value on each day's MLB card. And check out Long Shots, where we deep dive into the world of golf betting, providing you with expert insights to help you bet every tournament. Find all of these podcasts and more at VSiN.com/podcasts or your favorite podcast platform.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Happy Thursday morning. This is the VSiN Morning Line. Harrison Sanford and Michael Lombardi with you in this moment. Grace Hermanton will be joining us later on in the show, but we have to get to our guest. Joining us on the Progressive Guest Line is Brian Baldinger, joining us on the show to break down everything he thinks might happen in week number 4 of the NFL. And Baldy, we'll just start with the game that's happening tonight, Thursday Night Football. And Michael and I were talking about it earlier in the show. This game might be predicated on the Jets offense. Do you see them finally making an upswing, making an uptick in their production on that side of the ball with Aaron Rodgers getting his start back at MetLife Stadium?
Oh, they were better last week. You got the running backs involved, and Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. They scored all their touchdowns last week. And they played much better up front than they did against San Francisco the Monday night before. So I think, they're able to convert some third downs and stay on the field. They got into their offense a little bit better. And so it was good seeing probably Michael Williams out there making his first catch as a Jet. And it looks like the offense could open up a little bit more than, that dreadful showing against San Francisco.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, Baldy. Their offense, after 2 games last year, averaged 5.1 yards per play. And after 2 games this year, they've averaged 5.1 yards per play. Yeah. So we got to expect to see Rodgers, throw the ball. And this could be a challenge because New England defensively has done a really good job in the first 2 games. What has impressed you about what they're doing defensively?
Well, they play very similar to what they do. They rotate they play a lot of different fronts, Mike. And they rotate a lot of defensive linemen. And this Keon White, there's a reason probably why they traded Matt Judon away. But he's been a really good player. I think their safeties are all over the place. And, you hold Joe Burrow the first week to 10 points. And even last week, they broke down in coverage on the touchdown by DK Metcalf. But other than that, they played really disciplined football. And they give you a lot of looks, and they really challenge you. And right now, their defense, I don't know if anybody's playing better run defense than the Patriots. They're giving up 3.3 yards a carry right now, Mike, and anybody would take that in any level of football anywhere right now.
Yeah, no question. The Ravens are under 3, but other than that, every team there, when you could stop the run, you force the other team to play left-handed. Stopping the run, we both live in the Philadelphia area, Baldy. The Eagles can't stop the run. Everybody's talking about Sirianni's decision, which I think was horrendous. But at some point, when are we going to peel back the layer and say this Eagle defensive front, which has had so much publicity and so much expectations, their edges are too soft, and they go into New Orleans, who can run the outside zone, and Philly is yet to demonstrate they can handle the outside zone.
Mike, they're giving up 6.4 yards a carry. They've seen Josh Jacobs, week 1, and then they saw, Bijan and Algier last week, and then. But Mike, just the basics of run defense. Every defense, I don't care if you're a 3-4, 4-3. Every defense is a gap defense, right? It's just unbelievable how undisciplined they are and where they are. And I don't know how they're being coached. Clint Hurt, he was the second worst run defense in football last year up in Seattle. It's really why they made a change from Pete Carroll. They were terrible against the run. That's after they traded for Leonard Williams. Just fundamentally, I don't think they understand, any concept of gap defense. They're constantly getting exposed. And so until that gets fixed, I don't care how many number 1 draft picks they have out there. Bryce Huff is clearly, not a starting defensive end at this point. He's not good against the run. Jordan Davis isn't getting off blocks, but just gap integrity, Mike. It's awful right now. Until they get that fixed, teams are going to continue to pound them.
Yeah, and their conditioning, Baldy, doesn't look any better than it did last year. They looked gassed in the fourth quarter. They had no pressure on Cousins. They couldn't stop. They couldn't get anything going up front. So to me, but let's shift it a little bit to their offense. I watch Jalen Hurts, and I see a guy who doesn't want to stay in the pocket, who wants to get out of there. He wants to run, and he looks really uncomfortable in this offense. What do you think?
Well, the line has protected him. Makai's played really good at right guard. They can run the ball. The pocket is there to stay there. Now, whether he can see the field really well. He's not throwing a lot of balls on timing. He's getting the ball out quicker with Kellen Moore. They've got some 3-step drops. He hit a ton of little routes to Britton Covey and the week before to Devontae. But, it almost looks like he was hoping A.J. Brown was still on the field, because that's what he usually does. He breaks the pocket. He's looking for A.J., and he's looking to make a big play. But, even the interception at the end of the game, I mean, they only have to, in this business, if you get the ball to 30, Mike, you only have to go 30 yards to kick a field goal right now. I mean, they had plenty of time on the clock. They didn't need to make that throw. They had 2 timeouts in their pocket. They still had a chance to go down there and kick a field goal. And to throw that interception, that spot, I mean, it was just a poor decision, I thought, by Jalen.
Yeah, I did as well. I thought that was very disappointing. The other quarterback that has not played as well as everybody might suspect is Patrick Mahomes. I know he's had 2 deep touchdown passes, one to Worthy, one to Rice, but on a consistent basis, this Chief offense has only converted 5 third downs in 2 games. What do you see from them offensively now that they've lost Pacheco, and how do you think they match up to the Atlanta Falcons this weekend?
Well, I was in Kansas City last week, Mike, and, Trey Hendrickson just, he basically single-handedly benched Kingsley Suamataia, the left tackle, and then they had to go to Wanya Morris. He wasn't any better. I mean, they got a real problem protecting the blind side of Patrick Mahomes, and he knows it, and he can feel it. It's just interesting right now. Like, Kelsey has been almost non-existent in the offense. He's got 4 catches, Mike, in 2 games. Like, he did catch one ball that got called back. It was a big play, but I mean, they're not getting the ball to Kelsey. It doesn't look. And even Xavier Worthy was almost invisible last week after being so productive his first game. And so I think it starts up front, but they got to figure out what they're going to do at left tackle because, you go to, even if you're playing Atlanta this week, they got some guys that can come off the edge a little bit, that will expose that position again.
Yeah, no question. How about New Orleans? How impressed are you with what Carr's doing? I know I am. And the fact that they are the number 1 team in being under center. To me, it's almost a message that I think the Baltimore Ravens should take into account because Carr is better when he is under center, and it opens up the down-the-field passing game.
Well, they struck gold, Mike, with this left tackle they drafted, Taliesin Fuaga. They're a left-handed team right now. I haven't seen an offensive lineman come in this league and move people like that. The running game is cooking. But look, coaching is the difference in this league. And Clint Kubiak coming in has really instilled, Mike Shanahan's, Kyle Shanahan's, Sean McVay's offense. And they got the horses up front to do it. The running game is clicking. It doesn't seem like anybody can cover Rashid Shaheed right now in this business. He ran right by both safeties in Dallas last week. They're on fire right now. And they have everything it takes to be an excellent offense going forward. And Philadelphia's going down there limping defensively in there. They might just continue to put up a 40-burger the way that they're playing right now. But Derek is very, very comfortable. He's seeing the field really well. He's the best. It's only a 2-game stretch, but it's the best he's looked in years right now, Mike. Yeah. And the offensive line's a big part of it. In the running game, Kamara is all the way back. And, they've got a lot of different ways that they run it. But it's been impressive thus far.
Yeah. Where are you headed this weekend for what game, Baldy?
I'm going down there to New Orleans. I talked to Mickey Loomis.
Wow.
Well, it's interesting. One thing that's interesting, Mike, I don't know if you've tracked this or not, but I was talking to Mickey Loomis about this the other day. They're a team that believes in putting the kickoff in play. They haven't had any touchbacks, and they're covering their kicks. And you've always said this, Mike. I never forgot this. You've always said that your kickoff coverage team is an extension of your defense. Going down there, making tackles, getting off blocks, like all the things that you're supposed to do as a defender. Like they're letting their kickoff coverage team go play special teams. And they don't fear the big play and the kickoff, and they're just not willing to give the ball at the 30-yard line and let the offense start. I'm actually anxious to kind of watch that play out this weekend against Philly.
Yeah, and Baldy, with it, like you said earlier, with the ball at the 30, and these guys making 21 50-yarders, and they do it at an extra point level, it's really remarkable that people don't realize field position. I mean, Indy goes in on 4th and 4 at their own 46. It's almost like they pay no attention to field position in this league when we know it matters, especially at the level. Baldy, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you bet, Mike. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us yet again. That's Brian Baldinger, who is joining us on the Progressive Guest Line. Coming up, we go back to Thursday Night Football, and we enter the prop shop. Stay tuned. This is the VSiN Morning Line.